This is a second quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Life Together that I want to share. Bonhoeffer writes, "The most experienced psychologist or observer of human nature knows infinitely less of the human heart than the simplest Christian who lives beneath the cross of Christ, the cross of Jesus. The greatest psychological insight, ability, and experience cannot grasp this one thing, what sin is. Worldly wisdom knows what distress and weakness and failure are, but it does not know the godlessness of man." So these are difficult words for some to hear. What cushioned them to my ears is that we're all afflicted with the same thing. So if we're accused, I'm pious, but you're a sinner, that can be very offensive. But if the premise is, I have a natural tendency, predilection towards thinking or doing in a way that is offensive and sinful to the person and being of Jesus Christ and the teaching of Scripture, and so do you, then we relate to each other on a playing field that lets us address what sin is, how we would respond to it, how we would ask Christ for forgiveness, how we would come alive because Christ provides that forgiveness for us, how we are tethered to Christ because we cannot live without Him nor without the forgiveness that He offers. There's true healing in this. However, if we see, how does Bonhoeffer put it? If we see the human experience as one of distress, weakness, and failure, well, then that's a different conversation, isn't it? As Bonhoeffer says, for the Christian who sits beneath the cross of Christ, I'm treating the sin differently by acknowledging it, going to Jesus Christ, who died on a cross for the forgiveness of my sins. I say to Him, this is my sin. This is what I've done. I'm being as honest and revealing to Christ, who already knows as I can possibly muster, and I'm asking for His forgiveness. Then He can say, you're forgiven. And now something happens. I'm reconciled to Christ because He wants to forgive and because I want to be forgiven. And I said I was a sinner. What I had done was wrong. It was heartless. It was unkind. It was judgmental. And it was hurtful to someone else. And I've confessed it to Christ, and He's forgiven me for it. If that sin involves another person, it's very appropriate to go to that person. Not always, but very often. We sometimes do things we should not do that are incompatible with life, flourishing life on earth, as designed by the Father. And if we are transgressing this spiritual law, then to ignore that law and just to deal with the emotion, I feel distressed in my life and I'm not sure why, it will never bring the depth of healing because the actual injury is untreated. Does that make sense? My point is not to accuse someone or to make someone uncomfortable if you are living in a present state of being in counseling and it sounds like I'm attacking counseling. I'm not. If it feels like you feel distressed right now and I seem unsympathetic, I don't want to seem unsympathetic. I am completely sympathetic. It is more kind to say, will this acknowledgement of sin in life bring the encouragement that this video is talking about? Or is it better to say, I'm sorry you're feeling distress. What can we do to make those feelings go away? What can we do to make, what skills can we learn that address the symptoms that come with distress? Addressing the distress. Let me continue to read a little bit more here. Only the Christian knows this, that we can be healed through forgiveness. In the presence of a psychiatrist, I can only be a sick man. In the presence of a Christian brother, I can dare to be a sinner. The psychiatrist must first search my heart, and yet he never plumbs its ultimate depth. The Christian brother knows when I come to him, here is a sinner like myself, a godless man who wants to confess and yearns for God's forgiveness. The psychiatrist views me as if there were no God. The brother views me as I am before the judging and merciful God in the cross of Jesus Christ.